Genre: Biography. Out of This World: The Ellen Ochoa Story by Leanne B. Awnish. Essential question: why are goals important? Read about Ellen Ochoa. Find out how she reached her goals. How many people can say that their jobs are out of this world? Ellen Ochoa, can. She is the first female Hispanic American astronaut. Her job has taken her out of this world 4 times. Don't be afraid to reach for the stars. I believe a good education can take you anywhere on Earth and beyond. Ellen Ochoa. Reaching for the Stars. Ellen Ochoa was born in California in 1958, the same year the space program began. Back then, only men became astronauts. This was a problem for women who wanted to go into space. Women were not allowed to even apply for the job. Luckily, the space program began accepting women in 1978. Sally Ride, the first female astronaut, went into space in 1983. In fact, it was Sally Ride's mission that gave Ellen Ochoa the idea of becoming an astronaut. When Ellen Ochoa began college, she thought she would be a professional musician, then changed her mind. When she went to Stanford University, she heard about the skills an astronaut required. She decided to try to join the astronaut program. Unfortunately, Ochoa was not chosen. She did not have the right skills. Most astronauts were men. She wasn't a military pilot like many astronauts. She wasn't athletic and strong. But Ellen wanted to go into space. She knew this was a problem she could solve. I can't imagine not wanting to go into space, Ochoa says. She did not give up her dream. Ellen Ochoa trained hard to become an astronaut. Young Ellen was a good math and science student. Stop and check. Reread. What inspired Ellen Ochoa to become an astronaut? Reread to find out. At Stanford, Ochoa studied subjects related to space. She did research for several inventions that helped solve problems in space. One of her inventions helped guide robotic arms for work in space. Robotic arms look like human arms. They have parts that move like a shoulder, an elbow, and a wrist. They do jobs that are too hard or dangerous for people. Many tasks in outer space require astronauts to use robotic arms. Ochoa's experience with robotic arms helped her get into the astronaut program in 1991. Ochoa controlled the space shuttle's robotic arm. One of Ochoa's inventions helps guide robotic arms. Training in space. Before she could join the space program and be an astronaut, Ochoa had one more problem to solve. She had to get herself ready. It was not an easy task. She began training in 1990. Her strong background in math and science helped her do well in these new classes. She also had to pass a physical exam to get into the program. She learned to work on the real machines astronauts use during space flights. In training, things keep breaking and problems have to be solved, Ochoa says. I was in training for 3 years before my first mission. During training, astronauts work on machines that get them used to working in space. One machine creates weightlessness conditions that astronauts feel in space. Weightlessness is the fun part of the mission, Ochoa says. I guess the closest thing would be swimming or scuba diving. What is odd is that weightlessness seems more natural. Astronauts are trained to get used to feeling weightless. An interview with Ellen Ochoa. Student reporters interviewed Ellen Ochoa. Here are some of their questions and her answers. What is NASA training like? In training, we prepare for anything that could happen on a space mission, anything that could go wrong. Nothing has ever gone wrong on any of my missions, and our training helps us make sure that nothing will. For my last mission, we trained for 9 months before the actual flight. How do you sleep on the space shuttle? On my last mission, we slept in what can best be described as a sleeping bag with hooks. You would find a place to hook onto and float in. What do you look for in a potential astronaut, and what is their average age? Most of the people who are selected are between the ages of 30 to 40. We look for a college education in science or technology. We look for people who can do many things well, because people with multiple skills can usually learn things quickly. This is a very important skill for an astronaut. Astronauts are able to sleep even in weightless conditions. Stop and check. Reread. How did Ellen Ochoa train to be an astronaut? Reread to find out. Space work is teamwork. An astronaut must be both a team player and a leader as well, Ochoa says. She tells students, you should get involved in activities where you work closely with other people. Working closely with others is an essential part of being an astronaut and solving problems in space. First, there is the ground crew. They inspect and repair the shuttle before each mission. Next, mission control workers guide the astronauts through each moment of a mission and debrief them on procedures. They are responsible for knowing how equipment is working and how the astronauts are feeling. The crew on a space shuttle must work together to get their jobs done. During a spaceflight, the teamwork continues. Ochoa and the other astronauts work together to meet the goals of their mission. A spaceflight crew is like a sports team. The commander of the shuttle is the team captain. He or she makes the crucial decisions that have serious effects on a mission. On her first mission in 1993, Ellen Ochoa was a mission specialist. Mission specialists are scientists who do experiments. Ochoa used a robotic arm to send and get back a satellite that collected information about the sun. Then, in 1994, Ochoa was the payload commander on her second mission. The payload might be supplies or equipment such as the robotic arm. She did satellite studies of the sun's effects on Earth's climate or weather. Each person in mission control works together to make the mission a success. Space jobs. In 1999, Ochoa was a mission specialist again on a space flight. During this flight, she and the crew delivered supplies to the International Space Station. She also walked in space for the first time during this mission. Finally, in 2002, Ochoa took her last space flight. Again, she worked on the International Space Station. She used the robotic arm to deliver supplies and help build new parts of the space station. Between missions, Ochoa continued working. She worked with astronauts and ground crew to prepare for other space missions. Astronauts have to work closely together in tight spaces. Ellen Ochoa's life today. Today, Ochoa likes to travel to tell students and teachers about her experiences as an astronaut. She finds it exciting to communicate with students. She tells them how she solved the problem of becoming an astronaut. She likes to describe life aboard the space shuttle. I'm not trying to make every kid an astronaut, but I want kids to think about a career and the preparation they'll need, Ochoa says. I tell students that the opportunities I had were a result of having a good educational background. Education is what allows you to stand out. Ellen Ochoa has realized her dream. She became an astronaut and she has traveled into space 4 times. Altogether, Ochoa has spent nearly 980 hours in space. Her space missions have taken her more than 16 million miles around Earth. That is more than 640 trips around Earth at the equator. Ellen Ochoa's job has truly taken her out of this world. Blast off. Some facts about Ellen's trips. STS-56, Atlas II Discovery. Date, April 4 through 17, 1993. Time in space, 9 days. Miles traveled, 3.9 million. STS-66, Atlantis. Date, November 3 through 14, 1994. Time in space, 11 days. Miles traveled, 4.5 million. STS-96, Discovery. Date, May 27 to June 6, 1999. Time in space, 10 days. Miles traveled, 3.8 million. STS-110, Atlantis. Date, April 8 to 19, 2002. Time in space, 10 days. Miles traveled, 4.5 million. Stop and check. Summarize. What do astronauts do? Tell the details you learned in this story. Genre, adventure story. Compare texts. Read about a girl who has a big goal. A flight to Lunar City. Get ready for landing, announced Commander Buckley. Fantastic, whispered Maria, clinging tightly to her robot pooch. She could see the gray, dusty surface of the moon out the lunar lander's window. Going to the moon had been Maria's goal since she was 5. The dream had motivated Maria to enter a science project in the National Space Contest. She had invented Robbie, the robot dog, as her science project. He was the perfect moon pet. Maria and Robbie had won first prize, a trip to Lunar City, the first settlement on the moon. Now they were almost there. Robbie wriggled and squirmed. Settle down, Maria scolded. Sometimes Robbie was awfully wild, like a real puppy. Maria was thinking about adjusting his personality profile program to make him a little calmer. Suddenly, there was a large bang. The lunar lander jerked forward and turned upside down. Then it rolled sideways. The lights on the ship dimmed. The emergency lights came on. "The power is off," gasped Commander Buckley. "We're stuck." "Oh no!" cried Maria. "Woof!" yapped Robbie as he squirmed and wiggled in Maria's arms. "Hold on," said Commander Buckley. She pushed buttons and touched the control screen. She tried to contact the landing station. Nothing worked. "This control stick is broken," said Commander Buckley in a panic. "We can't move ahead." She tried to push the control stick into the right position for landing, but it would not budge. Just then, Robbie jumped out of Maria's arms and leaped across the landing ship. He jumped onto the stick with all 4 paws and growled fiercely. He tugged and chewed on it. "Stop!" cried Maria. All at once, the control stick shifted into position. The lights came back on. The landing ship whooshed forward. "Robbie, you did it!" laughed Commander Buckley. "Good dog." She handed Robbie back to Maria. "Now we can land on the moon." Maria smiled proudly. Robbie was the best robot dog ever. Make connections. What was Maria's goal? What did she do to reach it? What other people with goals have you read about? How are they like Maria? How are they different?
Genre, biography. Rocketing into space. Essential question. Why are goals important? Read how one man used his education and experience to reach his goals. When James A. Lovell Jr. was a boy, he loved to build rockets and launch them into the sky. But his dreams went a lot farther than his rockets. Like many boys who grew up in the 1930s, Lovell dreamed of being a pilot. And as he watched his rockets soar, he knew someday he would too. High-flying dreams. Lovell was born in Cleveland, Ohio in 1928. He worked hard in school and planned to go to a special college to study astronomy and rockets. Unfortunately, he didn't have enough money to attend. Lovell had to figure out another way to reach his goal. Lovell was motivated to find a way to fly rockets, so he went to college near his home for 2 years and then signed up for flight training at the United States Naval Academy. After 4 years at the academy, Lovell joined the United States Navy and became a professional naval test pilot. His job was to fly planes before anyone else was allowed to fly them. James A. Lovell Jr. became an astronaut in 1962. He flew 4 space missions. Pilot to astronaut. As a pilot, Lovell spent more than half of his flying time in jets. He taught other pilots how to fly. He also worked as a specialist in air flight safety. Soon, the National Aeronautics and Space Administration, or NASA, put out a call for astronauts. Lovell applied for the job because he had all the essential skills needed to fly into space. As a result, NASA chose him. By 1962, James Lovell was an astronaut. He had finally reached his goal. Big challenges. Lovell flew on 3 space missions, and then, in April 1970, he became commander of the Apollo 13 mission. This was a big responsibility and a great honor. This was also one of the biggest challenges of Lovell's life. Apollo 13 was supposed to land on the moon. 2 days after leaving Earth, however, the spacecraft had a serious problem. One of its oxygen tanks exploded. The crew did not have enough power or air to breathe. They could not make it to the moon. Lovell communicated with the experts at NASA. No one knew what to do at first. Then the team on the ground did some research and came up with a solution. The astronauts followed the team's directions and built an invention using plastic bags, cardboard, and tape. It worked. It cleaned the air in the spacecraft. But the next problem was even bigger. How were the astronauts going to get back to Earth? NASA's team works to solve Apollo 13's problem. A job well done. The NASA team decided the astronauts would use the lunar or moon module as a lifeboat. James and the other 2 astronauts climbed into the smaller spacecraft and shut the hatch tight. They moved away from the main spaceship. With little power, water, food, or heat, the astronauts listened carefully to the team at NASA. The trip back to Earth was dangerous and scary. For almost 4 days, the astronauts traveled in a cramped capsule. They were cold, thirsty, and hungry. Then, with millions of people watching on television, the module fell to Earth. Years later, James Lovell said that Apollo 13 taught him how important it was for people to work together. His favorite memory was when the capsule splashed down in the Pacific Ocean and the diver knocked on the window to let them know they were safe. A dream come true. Did you ever dream of going into space? Check out Space Camp. Space camps have been around for more than 30 years. They make science, math, and technology exciting so kids will want to learn more. And like the NASA training programs, these camps teach the importance of teamwork and leadership. The Apollo 13 crew splashed down safely on April 17, 1970. Make connections. How did James A. Lovell's goals as a child help him as an adult? Tell about one of your goals and how you might achieve it.